Tell it well of this old marketing move.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This old marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for, yeah, that's right, business professionals. And welcome, I'm Robert Rose. Hey, it's Friday the 13th, December the 13th. That is Lucky Friday, and this is going to be a weird one, folks, because, well, I got to tell you, we had some technical issues here, and so we're trying to work through this as best we can. Wait till you see what we got in store for you. It's a little bit of a surprise. And with me, as usual, kind of usually, because we're going to do things a little differently for this on the road version of the show, as it were, is my pal, my colleague, and a guy, well, who just lost the #1 worldwide tour spot to Ms. Taylor Swift. That's right, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
Robert, thank you so much. Yes, this might be the worst or the best episode we've ever done. It might be the worst because I'm trying to produce this together when Robert's not even here. He just sent me a bunch of stuff. See, it's the kind of friend that Robert is. He couldn't get his stuff together, so he just sends me a bunch of videos and says, figure out this episode. So here I am. I'm going to figure it out. And we're I think it's going to be the best, though, because he can't talk back to me. He's going to do his little shorts and all the little show stuff, and it's going to be wonderful because I can basically say whatever I want to, and he can't do anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick this off sort of like it's a real show, and we're going to see if it works. And if it doesn't, I'm just going to ask you for a little bit of grace as we move forward, because I'm going to need a lot of grace. Let's see what Robert's up to here. Hold on.
All right, we've got a pretty good show for you here today. We're going to try and go back and forward in this as best we can. And basically, here are the stories we're going to cover. Well, we're going to start with the big story, which, of course, is TikTok. TikTok loses in its appeal and basically has to file an emergency motion. Are we just figuring it out that it's going to get banned, or is it actually going to get banned? We don't know. We're going to talk a little more about it. And of course, we'll talk about Omnicom. The big news this week, kind of breaking news almost this week, is that it is now buying Interpublic Group for $13 billion. Yes, just what the world needs. Another huge global-sized ad agency holding company. Just what will work for clients, right? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we'll pay some bills and we'll come back and we'll talk about, yes, OpenAI has finally launched Sora, the video creation AI engine that it has so long been working on. Is it good? Is it not good? What's going to happen? We'll take a peek beneath the hood and see what we can see there. And then we'll get to our winners and losers. We'll talk a little bit about winners. My winner is going to be from The Atlantic, where we're going to talk a little bit about the still absolutely viable way that we can look at print catalogs as a marketing engine. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to take a page out of the Joe Pulizzi handbook here and talk a little bit about print catalogs as being one of the biggest marketing engines there is. And also, we'll get to our rants and raves, where I'm going to rant and Joe will rave or rant. We're not really sure yet about what he's going to talk about, but I'm going to rave a little bit, well, about this new article that just came out that talks about the idea of what's going on in consulting, the world of AI, and services businesses, and how professional services are really being, well, changed fundamentally with the advent of Gen AI. So a chock-a-block show here. And again, thanks for hanging in there with us as we try and deal with the way that we're going to structure this show. And well, let's get to our first story.
Actually, this might be the best episode ever now that I'm watching this, because my biggest problem with Robert is that he just rambles a lot about all sorts of things, and it's unnecessary. So the great thing is he's going to give his takes to each of these stories. And then basically he talks and then I comment, and then he comes back with another comment, and then I go, and it goes back, and it's a never ending circle of stuff. And that's why our show is an hour and 15 minutes long. This show is probably going to be a lot shorter because we don't have to worry about that. So let's get to the first story, the TikTok story. Robert, what do you got for us?
All right. So our first story, well, it is about TikTok, of course. And TikTok, yeah,
So,
they have filed their emergency motion to stop the ban from taking effect. Wait a minute, you say? You didn't even hear that there was a ban. Yeah, there was a ban coming. We talked about it on this show many times in the spring of this year. We talked about the signing of the bill into law that Joe Biden signed back in March. And well, that ban is now coming due. And there's some real irony here in terms of the timing here. So on Monday, TikTok requested the emergency pause of a law set up to ban the popular social media network. This would lift basically the fact that they lost their Court of Appeals, which literally last week just came down as well, where a judge basically said, nope, you lost the appeals process and you're going to have to actually continue on schedule to be banned in January. So the filing here by TikTok is basically looking for an extension, a way for them to extend so that they can either take this to the U.S. Supreme Court or that they can actually do what they want to do, which is obviously not be banned. So this coming courtesy of the ABC News, of course, and basically the article here opens up by saying TikTok on Monday requested the emergency pause of a law to set the social media app, which is going to happen next month. The temporary lifting of the measure would afford the Supreme Court time to determine whether it would review the law, the company said in a court filing. The filing arrives days after TikTok, which boasts more than 170 million users, lost a challenge against the measure in the federal appeals court. So here's my quick take on this, and then Joe, obviously, you'll get yours. So my quick take on this is again a lot of dancing over nothing. We back in the spring, I know we talked about this, and what we said at the time was that nothing was going to change anytime soon. At least that was my take on the situation, was that nothing was really going to change here. And all the mainstream media news now that are reporting, oh my gosh, the ban is coming January 19th. By the way, January 20th is when President Trump, of course, takes office and will basically stand on the giant stage with, I'm sure, millions and millions of people in attendance and basically take the oath of office. So will this be the first thing that he does a day after the ban is supposed to take effect, is to basically say, no, you've got your 90-day extension, you've got as much time as you need? Or will he let this go to the Supreme Court? Or will something else happen where a deal is actually made and they actually, who knows what's going to happen? I can tell you this is not going to be solved before January 19th. And it is certainly going to bleed into this spring and this summer before anything meaningfully happens. So if you're just looking to get onto TikTok, I would say you can go ahead and get on. If you're on and you love it, you're not going to lose it anytime soon. If you're looking at all these content creators that are out there right now and they're actually going, oh, we're leaving TikTok, we're leaving for Instagram, or we're leaving for other pastures, I wouldn't believe that either. I think a lot of this is going to be a lot of posturing, a lot of hot air, a lot of basically looking in drama, and it's going to go back and forth. And then who knows actually what'll happen. My own prediction, I think TikTok stays. I think they get a stay of execution from President Trump. And I think it actually ultimately goes to the Supreme Court, where they ultimately find that it's fine to be as it is. So that's my take. I don't know, Joe, what do you think about this? And what's going to be your take on the TikTok idea?
thanks, Robert. I think you covered most of it. I think the first thing that I just want to remind people that we've talked about many times on the show is don't put all your content eggs in one basket, specifically TikTok, specifically one that maybe isn't on paper run by China, but it certainly seems to be that way. I believe that right now, if you just look at what's happened the rest of the week since the DOJ started pushing hard, they're trying, the Department of Justice is trying to get something done and really push this thing before that 20th date, and that January 20th date is when President Trump takes office. I agree with you, Robert. I don't think anything's going to happen. I think it is all posturing. But again, it makes me wary because there are so many creators out there and marketers that have put so much faith into TikTok, and it could. I mean, I think it's a small chance, but we absolutely could see something happen to this. I don't agree with you, Robert, in the fact that by the middle of the year or whatever, it'll all get resolved and go back. Something has to happen. Like TikTok will have to change something, even though you look at most of the money that's in this is actually coming from the United States here. So if you look at who the real owners of ByteDance are, it's just the influence that China has. I think something will have to change. They're going to have to say that the data servers go and are absolutely run by, you know, back in the day when Trump was president, they talked about Oracle doing that. I think you're going to have to see something like that. But again, who knows what's going to happen? I agree. Nothing's going to happen before the 19th. And of course, we know why that date was set, because that is the last day that Biden's in office. So I guess I would just say, be careful. I don't know if I would be sending people to TikTok right now to get started. I don't think I would be getting, I don't want to put anything. I mean, look what happened. We talked about how X was just going to go down and be nothing. And regardless of what you think of Elon and whatever, you could say that X is turning it around because they've got this new energy with the new presidency coming in and whatever. So I don't like the whole thing. I'm the one that years ago said that this thing was absolutely going to be banned. Now I just can't stand the story, to be honest. I'm getting tired of the whole thing, and I just want it all to go away. Still, I'm not on TikTok. I know you are, Robert. I know you love it. I know you're completely addicted to it. And you wanted to stay. I wish it would just go away because the more that I look at the stats about mental health issues leading to, in some cases, horrible outcomes such as suicide in young children, the younger kids that are getting on social media. But I want to see, back to our episode, I think it was last week or before we went on hiatus there, I want to see the government get involved in that, in specifically getting children or making it harder for children to get on the platforms of social media, any of them, TikTok included. So I guess that's what I would say. And I know we're going to go to our next story on Omnicom. And this is one that Robert should absolutely love because he loves anything with agencies. And if I haven't seen any of these, by the way, or I'm looking at them. If you're listening to it, I haven't heard any of these little takes that Robert makes, but I bet you he makes a big stink out of nothing here. Let's see what he says.
All right. Our second story here, our second story of the big story ideas here is, well, ad giant Omnicom is taking a big aim at big tech in the AI era with a $13 billion offer to buy Interpublic. That's right, one giant holding company buying another holding company, and this coming courtesy of Reuters for the news item here. And basically, the deal creates the world's largest advertising agency. Like, you know, we really needed that. The article opens up by saying Omnicom Group has struck a $13.25 billion all-stock deal to buy Interpublic Group, creating the world's largest advertising agency as traditional players look to better compete with the big tech firms' accelerating use of AI. The deal announced on Monday, and so this is also kind of breaking news, could attract regulatory scrutiny as it seeks to merge the world's third largest ad buyer, Omnicom, with the fourth largest, Interpublic, to basically form the number one sized ad agency out there. And that's a huge deal. And by the way, they wouldn't do this not knowing that it was going to pass regulatory muster, because
I agree.
yeah, that's right. Trump's coming into office, and I think this is all going to be fine. Anyway, the article continues by saying Interpublic investors will receive 0.344 Omnicom shares for each share held, or 35.58 based on Omnicom's last close. That represents a premium of 21% of Interpublic's close on Friday. So shareholders here are getting a good deal. They obviously feel pretty bullish about this whole thing. How do I feel? And Joe, I'm assuming you probably are throwing this into my court because you know this is my world that I live in.
Yep.
Here's what I think. I think this is really a telling sign of where the ad agency industry really is right now in terms of the size of companies. So scale has always really mattered here. In other words, this has been a trend that's happening for the last 20 years as the independents have really fallen underneath the larger holding companies for benefits of scale, et cetera, all because mostly the world of Accenture and PwC and the giant consulting companies have really drunk the milkshake of the large ad agencies out there. And what's happened over the last couple of years is we've seen those large consulting firms and ad agencies really come downstream and really start to drink the milkshake of even some of the mid-sized and boutique agencies as well. That's pressured more of the boutique agencies to either sell or get out of the business. And so what we're seeing here is a market consolidation again, yet again. And so I think this is telling for the coming year. I think you're going to see at this point sort of the idea of the largest holding company. You're going to see a lot of people get laid off here. You're going to see a lot of efficiencies try to get created, and all of it in the name of sort of drawing to the scale that Omnicom will provide. At the ground level, literally at the work level, not a lot's going to change. Not a lot's going to get changed here, other than the fact that big clients are going to start getting an Omnicom bill instead of an Interpublic bill. So I don't see a lot really materially happening in the coming year, but I do think this is a big opportunity for mid-sized and boutique agencies to really step up here and start to differentiate, because literally there are 3 players left. And when we start talking about 1, 2, and 3 in terms of the number of ad agencies out there and the dwindling number of smaller boutique agencies, I think the opportunity here to really differentiate around a specific niche, and maybe AI is it, but I think differentiating around that specific niche is going to be the key in 25 of really driving forward the boutique and smaller agencies out there. So I'm hopeful anyway. I'm hopeful. I don't know. Maybe Joe, you've got a different take on this, and you can, let me know what you think.
No, I like your take about the opportunities with the niche agencies. I think though, this is opposite. You covered it really well. I don't need to spend any more time on advertising agencies. The one thing in my travels, especially when I went to Italy recently, and I've started talking to some more brand representation in the content marketing space, how much the importance that advertising still has. I think at one point I was almost under the impression that you would start seeing more and more spending going into content creation and content marketing, and then you'd have less going to advertising. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't know if that's ever going to be the case now, because what's happening is that you're seeing more advertising and promotion spent to get the content out there in the first place, which I think is the right move. Where if somebody asked me today and said, okay, well, I've got a content creation budget, how much of that should I spend on creation versus distribution and promotion? I still think it's 25% on content creation and 75% on making sure it's seen. Because most digital content out there that you're creating, that I'm creating, that everyone else is creating, is not being seen by very many people. It's hard to break through all the clutter that's out there. So we have to do our part to make sure that, especially in this case where you have a big Omnicom group, they're spending a ton on advertising the content itself. And I know that's kind of not the story that we're talking about, but I think that that's what we are seeing, where the importance of these large advertising agencies is still to advertise and promote, and oftentimes it's not the product or service itself. It's actually getting the content seen on these different platforms as well, and in the takeovers on websites and social media and whatnot. So it's just kind of interesting. If you are running an agency today, or you're a part of an agency, now is a really good time to differentiate, per Robert's point. So take some time and figure out what your mission is and what your vision is, and why you're absolutely different, and why there might be an opportunity for you to go up against one of these large big 3 agencies, if you will, and see. So, all right, we are going to take a little break here to pay the bills. Here we go.
Let me evangelize about a podcast for a second. That's right, The Sales Evangelist, hosted by Donald Kelly and brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. Every week, Donald interviews the world's best sales experts, successful sellers, sales leaders, entrepreneurs in sales, sales people, who share their strategies to succeed in, well, yeah, that's right, like the name implies, sales. Folks like Jeffrey Gitomer, Jill Conrad, Bob Berg, and Guy Kawasaki, just to name a few. They share actionable insights and stories that will encourage, challenge, and motivate you to hustle your way to top income status. If you're someone looking to take off in your sales career and earn the income you deserve, this is the podcast for you. Find Sales Evangelist wherever you follow your favorite podcasts.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
All right, we're going to get to our next story now, and it is, of course, in the world of AI. So just as Omnicom is getting all swallowed up here and with Interpublic and becoming the giant snake with that's I don't know what that metaphor is really all about. Forgive me. I'll just keep going here. Anyway, let's talk a little more about AI and the big news this week from OpenAI, which, by the way, is doing this 12 days of Christmas or 12 days of announcements or something like that, where they're announcing something new features, new products kind of every day. Well, they have built this into their 12 days of Christmas, and OpenAI has finally released Sora, the buzzy AI video generation tool. This coming courtesy of CNBC, and how the article, but many of the mainstream outlets are actually reporting on this. And basically, it's at OpenAI, which burst into the mainstream last year thanks to the viral popularity of ChatGPT. Duh. Okay, thanks for stating the obvious there, CNBC. First announced Sora in February. In fact, it was almost exactly a year ago that they announced Sora, and it'll roll out to users in the US and other countries starting on Monday. Spoiler alert, I still have not been able to get access to it yet, although I have seen a few of my friends who actually have had access to it. Anyway, the AI video generation model, says the article, works similarly to OpenAI's image generation AI tool DALL-E, where user types, you'll type out a desired scene and Sora returns with a high definition video clip. Basically, the article then goes on to talk about, what the video generation model looks like, et cetera, et cetera. But you've all seen this, right? You've all seen the videos coming out of Sora, coming out of Gen AI, and seen what they look like. My take on this idea of what's going on here is, honestly, at this point, they all have a look, right? So Gen AI image creation, whether it's DALL-E, whether it's Claude, whether it's Google, it doesn't matter really what it is. They all have a definite look to them. And Sora is no different here. It is so easy to spot a Sora video, no matter what it really is looking like, or an AI generated video of some kind. And the reports that I'm hearing from colleagues who have early access to it are kind of, well, they're not under or overwhelmed. They're sort of just whelmed. They're just sort of like, all right, this is fine, I guess. What I'm hearing is, unless you get your prompt exactly right, and it can take some time to get that prompt exactly right, it's really just not that very much of a useful tool yet, because you're not getting the sort of high quality idea that you think you might. It just sort of looks like an AI generated video. So what I said sort of last year sort of holds when it comes to this sort of AI image, audio, and video. Text is a little different because of the way that it gets integrated into our experiences, but the way I look at this is that audio and video and pictures are a little different because we're much more critical with our eyes and ears than we are when it comes to our reading. And it just has that look to it. So the fascinating thing to me when I look at this is like, okay, for something in the background, or for something that we don't care anything about, or for something that might be a hero video on some blog post, it probably works fine. Are Hollywood directors and actors looking to be put out of work anytime soon? Absolutely not. Can it be good for storyboarding something quickly just to get a look of something that we might then shoot? 100%. Can it be used as a drafting board to draft up what a video could look like? Could it look, very washed out in the background of a website? All those things are probably true and probably the most useful use cases for this right now. I'll be very curious to see how or if the tool improves. The one thing that I'll bring up on a couple of articles that I've seen on this, on the idea of Sora, is the idea of deep fakes, and how, my friend Chris Pren actually wrote a post about this, about how customer care, for example, at restaurants are going to have to really pay attention to deep fakes now, where a customer can literally post up the bad review with a video of a restaurant, and it's basically a fake of that, the fact that they were actually even there. I don't worry so much about that. I really think we're all going to become very tuned in to what this video looks like. And I don't see a lot of that. I'm sure in your social media feeds have seen things like, the presidents and Putin and Mark Zuckerberg and all these deep fakes of them walking around with guns or walking through a bar, having drinks or whatever. And you can tell that it's not real. That's not nothing going on. It'll be really interesting to see if we start seeing it in context with other kinds of video. Some of the deep fakes that we saw early on, like with Tom Cruise and some of those things. So I don't think we're there yet with Sora. So I think the worry is a little overblown, and we'll see. I think this is very much like the image creation thing, a nifty little tool, but certainly not terribly useful just as yet.
Robert, thank you for the take. I've been trying to get into Sora for the last 3 days, and I haven't been able to do it. So they keep giving me errors and whatever. So there must be so much demand for this thing because I wanted to try it out a little bit. I like your idea about B-roll, and for you want to do some video, you want to do something, and it's a really good way to type it in and see what you get, and then you can actually visualize from there what the real thing would be. I've said a few times on this show, to rebut kind of what Robert's talking about, I would be very scared about what's going on right now. Not from the take that you can see it, you can see if it's AI. This is a temporary thing. If you could see it, this is for the next few months. Like you won't be able to tell in a year what's AI and what's not, in my opinion. From a picture standpoint, from a video standpoint, from an audio standpoint, I think that's where we're going to see it first. From the audio standpoint, the deep fake thing that everybody's worried about from a visual standpoint, I think is happening more in audio, where you're getting people caught on the phone or whatever. And AI, definitely audio is the first thing. Get your safe word with your family, folks. Absolutely do that. The biggest surprise that I have, I just talked to an agency CEO today, small agency, and they were saying how much time he spends himself and his office on the different AI. By the way, Google Gemini 2.0 came out yesterday as we're recording this. So the acceptance of it, that absolutely, there's no question that people are going to use it now. That happened awfully quickly from just 2 years ago where, hey, I don't know, should we not? The ethics of this have gone out the window. Maybe they shouldn't have, but absolutely everyone's on board the train. I guess I would say just be careful. Personally, get your situation right with your safe words. Talk to your kids about this. Make sure you know, because it's gonna happen in the next 12 months for sure. I know somebody who works at a retail outlet. I found out about this last week, that somebody got fired because they fell for a deep fake on the phone. So AI or not, it's absolutely an issue. Use these tools, to Robert's point, where it's not a primary thing. We use it for this old marketing. We use DALL-E, we use ChatGPT to create our images. I need something there. It's not all that important, but we need something that looks decent to tell the story of what the show is going to be. I think that's a great usage for it. But if it's something that's really, really important to what's going on, I do not want it for content creation. I still believe that the best usage of AI is to as the assistant part of this, not for the content creation. I still don't feel good inside about content creation outside of very, very small tertiary things. So I would just be careful. I think it's our responsibility as marketers and creators to know what's going on, where we can be more efficient. So look at it for efficiency as part of your content creation process. I would hold back. I would absolutely hold back as long as you can, because I don't know where this train is going to go. And also, if we're all using the same tools, what's the differentiation? What's our content tilt going to be? Where should we go? So just be careful with that. And I know we are going to see, look how efficient this episode is. I am just really, really happy with what's going on here. I don't know if you are. All right, we're going to do winners and losers. Let's see what Robert has to talk about.
All right, let's get to our winners and losers, where Joe and I pick a winner from marketing of the last week, or where we pick a loser from marketing in the last week. And Well, I'm going to have a winner this week. That's right. I've got a winner, and it comes courtesy of The Atlantic. And The Atlantic has an article that I just think you should go read because it's really interesting because it talks about what the marketing winner for me is this week. And it's basically print. And yes, I'm taking a page out of my friend Joe's here catalog and
Woohoo.
basically, looking at print because I think it's just amazing. I've gotten a couple of print catalogs in the mail for Christmas, and honestly, they're really good and they really differentiated themselves. But the Atlantic article talks about this idea of how print catalogs are really coming back, and basically talks a lot about J. Crew. They talk about the fact that J. Crew has 2.7 million followers on Instagram and more than 300,000 followers on X. But earlier this fall, they announced that they were trying to reach prospective customers in the old-fashioned way, reviving their print catalog. 2024, everybody shops online, but in recent years, what retailers have started to do is return to the print catalog as a way to grab a bit of the shopper's attention in the mailbox. And I have to say, it's a winner. It's happening. It's really happening. I have one client in particular who has reintroduced and focused on print and especially a print magazine. And they're seeing tremendous results of this from an engagement, time spent with the content, and actually conversions. So that's my winner this week. It's basically the return of print catalogs, and the idea of the return of print as a way of driving e-commerce. And I think it's just incredible. And so this Atlantic, we'll link to it in the show notes, of course. But this Atlantic article talks about the history of catalogs and how it's really become one of the modern marketing winners out there today. And I think I just agree. It's absolutely a winner. Joe, what do you got?
I love that. You knew I would love this. I love the opportunity in print. I've been talking about it forever. We all know this. Not as much in the catalog space where you're absolutely going to see it. You've seen Lego go into this. You've seen Walmart, Amazon. They're spending big on their catalogs this year. I still think the opportunity is in consistent content experiences in print magazines or newsletters for that matter. You've got no competition going on right now in that space. 100% delivery, almost 100% delivery. If you've got the database, geez, test it out. I think this is just the biggest opportunity I've seen in print since the launch of the printing press 500 years ago. So that's my quick take on that. My winner is not from this week, but I was given this information recently, so I think I'm okay in talking about it, even though this is from 1986. So what I have here, if you can see this you can't really see it because if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, I've got a memo, and this memo is from Howard Schultz in 1986 from Il Giornale Coffee Company. And for those of you that don't know, Il Giornale was Howard Schultz's start before he ended up purchasing the Starbucks name. So Il Giornale is kind of the first representation of what we now know as Starbucks. Why I wanted to talk about this and what I think you should take away from it. This is a memo to all employees where he spells out the philosophy of the company, the mission of the company, what they're trying to do. Now, they already had one or two shops by the time that they were doing this, and he's spelling out the importance of Il Giornale will strive to be the best coffee bar on earth. We will offer superior coffee and related products to help our customers start and continue their workday. We are genuinely interested in educating our customers and will not compromise our ethics or integrity in the name of profit. Our marketing will emphasize quality and service, not price. And he goes on with this. It's really interesting. I got this actually from somebody that used to work at Starbucks in the executive ranks. I can't tell you who, but it's so interesting. I just love that I have this, and I've read it a few times. And what I love and what I think you should do is, if you haven't had a chance to spell out your vision for your company and send this to your employees, I think that now is a really good time to do it. What do you stand for? What is your mission? What are your goals? What are you going to look like? What are you going to strive toward? So those are the things that I think you should do. And then beyond the fact, for content creation or content marketing, when I was in Las Vegas recently, I talked about with another number of author creators on their business, because I gave a presentation on how your book can be the center of your $1 million business. And in talking to a lot of the authors, they didn't have their long-term vision. They had a vision for they want to get on another book and what that would look like, but they didn't have a vision for here's what the business will look like in the next year, 3 years, 5 years. And that's where I think the opportunity is. So if you're a content creator and you're a content marketer, I think now is really the time to set your vision. What are you doing? What is your mission? What do you want to see this your content creation business become? What do you want to see this? What from a content perspective? Yes, but from a business perspective specifically. And you could do this individually. Like, what is your individual mission for your own career, for your own finances, for your philanthropic needs, for your kids? Like, what are those goals? And now's a great time to do that. But also for your business, where do you see it going? And I see way too many content entrepreneurs not focus on that. So that is my winner. Great example, Il Giornale. I'll put some links in the show notes about the history of Il Giornale if you haven't had a chance to look at it. Really, really impressive stuff. If you see 1986, and of course there's a Starbucks on every corner now, and that started with this mission statement as they got ready to go, and I just highly recommend that. So, okay, we're wrapping up the show, and we're going to get into our rants and raves, and let's see what Robert's talking about.
All right, now it's time for our rants and rave sections where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like, well, that we actually got to see the Taylor Swift concert, or something that makes us feel like we didn't get to see it at all. And by the way, count me in on that. I really wanted to go, but never got the chance to actually go see Taylor Swift. She played 5 nights here in Los Angeles, and it was crazy that
You should have went.
couldn't
No
get there.
excuses.
Anyway, so I have a rant, and I'm going to rant a little bit about another article that we'll put in the show notes. And this comes from the Australian.com, although there are other articles that have been out there that's sort of talking about the same thing. What this article talks about in particular is that it actually asks the question of whether businesses can actually build human-centric technology. And it really frames this question as the idea of professional services. So it looks at consulting, it looks at law firms, it looks at accounting, it looks at other kinds of professional services firms, and basically asks whether or not this is going to be replaceable with AI. And I have to tell you, the interesting thing to me is I was reading this article and started to just think, this is such the short-sighted way of looking at what AI is actually doing to the ways that we offer up professional services. So I am in the professional services business. I live this every day. I'm using AI every day, and I have absolutely zero fear that AI is going to replace me in my consulting business. I work with lawyers. I'm working as a fractional marketing leader for a number of law firms, and I can tell you right now, those law firms are not worried that AI is going to take their business, but they're using AI in their business every single day. And the key here is that I actually think it'll be a really interesting irony. I think the irony that we're going to start to discover is that AI gives us a lot of interesting capabilities if we really start to avail ourselves of those capabilities. But it's actually going to require more work, more resources, and more deeper skills in order to do it. In other words, it's not going to save anybody any time. It's actually going to add time, and it's actually going to add actual resources, budget, time to what it is we're doing. But it may be a way that we can actually get to differentiation better. And what I mean by that is that when I look at professional services and how I'm seeing agencies truly get value out of this, how I'm getting value out of it as a consultant, and how I'm seeing the lawyers and other professional services get value out of it, is as a way to bounce an assistant, a research assistant. And I hate anthropomorphizing it, because honestly, putting that anthropomorphication on anything like AI is just fraught for a bad way of looking at things. It is a tool. It is only a tool. It is as good as the ideas that we put into it. But what I'm finding is that using it to bounce ideas off of, using it to help shape the ideas that I have, and then help me shape those ideas into my own creations, is actually super productive. And so that's where the opportunity is. But I'm not necessarily outsourcing my brain or outsourcing my talents to AI in any form or fashion. And I don't see my clients looking for that either. And in fact, my clients are starting to really value the human connection, the human input, the human experience of me. So they don't want to talk to an artificial version of me. They don't want to look at the AI Robert and basically get advice for what they should be doing in marketing. They want to talk to me and hear me personally and have that human generated experience. So the more time I can spend on that human generated experience and the less time I'm spending on things like crafting an abstract or crafting a summary or crafting meeting notes, well, that's more time that I can spend into putting the human experience. That means the same amount of time that I'm putting forward to client work, it just means I'm spending that time in a different way. And I ultimately think that's how AI is going to work here. And basically, this article speaks to some of that. This article that I'm going to link to in the show notes here, it speaks to some of that and basically says the point that the article tries to make is, quote, the trick is to create broad access programs and give everybody in the world effectively access to these tools so that they can benefit from it equally. And I think that's the sort of, it's nice that that's the trick. And yes, it is the trick, but as has been so often said, right? The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. That's going to be the way things are with AI as well. AI will be unevenly distributed. And so it will be a differentiator for some and a crutch for others. And so our sort of job as clients of these professional services that we also use is to differentiate those based on the human differentiation that AI enables through its ability to be used properly. So anyway, that's my rant. Joe, I don't know what you've got, but that's what I'm talking about.
Robert, thank you for that. It actually, in listening to that, which I listened to for the first time, even though you recorded it before, I'm going to change my commentary. So I don't know if you've noticed, but Bitcoin has had a really good run lately. As we're recording this, it's over 100,000. And I've had a lot of conversations with people about it who are, again, just asking, hey, what about this Bitcoin? What's going on? There are so many financial advisors that I'm talking to right now that still don't have a solid take on it. Change is the toughest thing in anything. And I'm not saying that that anyone here has to adopt Bitcoin or whatever. I'm very passionate about it. But in talking to a lot of the financial advisors, some of these are very close friends of mine, it's so hard to integrate something new and different after you've been doing something for so long. And especially with finances, which is basically hasn't changed much since 2008 when we went through the Great Recession, and even before that. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is I had some really good conversations in Italy with a lot of very smart marketers, and they were asking about content marketing and measurement. And they said, well, how do I measure this different new kind of marketing? Get that? I mean, it's still very new for them as well. It's new for all of us because we haven't been telling our stories very long. And I said, the key, especially they were talking about measurement. How do I measure this thing? The advice I can give you, and maybe you're dealing with this now, or maybe you'll deal with this in the future. Don't measure any different than you measure your marketing now. I think where a lot of content marketers got in, they say, we're going to measure it this way. We're going to measure on engagement. We're going to measure on clicks. We're going to measure on whatever you're measuring. How were you measuring marketing before in your organization that was getting budget approval? And what we want to do is not change that formula too much. And I think a lot of content creators come in and say, no, this is different. No, it's marketing. How do you measure your marketing to your executives? How do you tell that story of performance and behavior change? And we want to make sure that our content creation efforts are similar to that. So again, change is so difficult. Even though you've probably been doing content marketing a long time, you're still battling uphill because of what we talked about before. Advertising is the sun, while content marketing is Pluto. It's not even a planet. So you don't want to change too many things at one time. You definitely don't want to change how you measure it. You can add things in as you go, and obviously it is a different animal, and it does, like I believe it takes a long time, multiple touch points in order to gain trust, like say with an email newsletter or a podcast, but it's the same for advertising. It takes a number of impressions to get somebody to trust you or at least pay attention to what you're doing. So change is tough. Change is already tough. Don't make it any more difficult than adding some kind of new measurement philosophy because you think it's different. Save yourself that process and try to mimic what you're already doing, and you'll have more success in your organization. I'm curious as to what you thought about this. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, by the way, on my LinkedIn page, This Old Marketing goes out at 8 a.m. Eastern time every Friday. On Robert's feed, it goes on at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So you can see the rerun, if you will, of this. We're on YouTube at This Old Marketing as well. I would love if you could comment and let us know what you thought about this one. I want to give a big kudos out to StreamYard. StreamYard is how we produce. We've been producing our podcast episodes for a long, long time now. And the fact that I was able to take 7 different videos and bring them in and make it a little bit seamless. By the way, I couldn't get the article up and have Robert speak at the same time. I didn't know I just learned it live. So you probably saw that little glitch if you're still with me at whatever it was, the 10-minute mark. But we made it through. So I'm so happy that we're able to have a tool such as StreamYard to get us through. So thanks to the folks at StreamYard. Thanks to the folks at HubSpot for keeping us going and being the sponsor of this show. And I love saying this because I never get the opportunity. We'll be back next Friday at the same time. We'd love reviews if you haven't been able to review this thing. And it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.
Hey, thanks a lot for making it this far in this week's episode, and thank you all for being a part of This Old Marketing. You can check out all the show notes of what we talked about today at thisoldmarketing.com, and it's also where you can leave us a review or a voicemail. We need those reviews and comments on whichever platform you follow us on. And if you haven't followed the podcast, please go do that and make sure you catch the latest and greatest episodes every Friday morning. We're on Apple and Spotify and all your other favorite podcatchers, of course, but we'd love it if you went over and subscribed to us on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. youtube.com/@thisoldmarketing. We'll see you again next week, folks, with another episode of This Old Marketing.